Hello, everyone. It's Gooey here with our final Wiinter recommendation series. We are recovering from the holidays and from travel, and we thought this would be a perfect time to share with you another great episode of a show we think you should check out. Here we've got the Kirby Conversations podcast, which you may have heard in the feed before. It's a really good show where they go into great detail about various aspects of the Kirby series. I've learned a lot listening to this show, and even checked out some games, including one from this episode here. McKenna and I went on to discuss the original Kirby's Return to Dreamland for the Wii. So this is also kind of an entry into our Wiinter series. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy that. Hopefully you go check out Kirby Conversations. It's a really great show. We hope to have them back on some more. Actually, I have some stuff set up with some of them to come back on our show. Hopefully we get to go back on their show and discuss more Kirby. It's fun expanding our Nintendo horizons. And we hope you all have a good rest of your 2024, and we will see you in the new year. Enjoy.
How'd you feel about Magalore?
What did you think about, yeah?
You know, it was funny. We didn't look up anything before we played, so we're just like, oh, this is the last world. We're almost done.
We were shocked.
We're like, wait, what?
Hi, and welcome back to Kirby Conversations. I'm Sean Douglas. I'm a writer and podcaster, and I am here again with Kirby expert and all-around commentator, artist, collector, just a great resource for the Kirby community, Bridget. Bridget, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
And we have Gigi, the editor-in-chief of Wick Kirby and the prolific translator of so much Kirby content out there. If you're reading an interview that originally appeared in Japanese and now you're getting to read it in English, you may very well be reading something that Gigi translated. Gigi, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
How are things in Brazil?
Yeah, Twitter got blocked, so we are now we have Twitter again, I guess, if that's a good thing.
And we are joined by some special guests today. We have Gooey and McKenna from the podcast Flashback 64. If you've been following the feed for this podcast, we posted their Mischief Makers episode a few weeks ago, and it's great to have them here in person online, I guess. Gooey and McKenna, how are you?
Good.
Hey, good. Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah.
You guys do so much great coverage of retro games from the 90s, and this is another retro game in a sense. It's not from the 90s, but it's one that you wanted to talk about, and I'm really glad you recommended it because I really had not dusted off the Wii U in a while to play a Wii game. But today we are talking about Kirby's Return to Dreamland from 2011. So thank you again for that recommendation. Before we start talking about that game, would you two like to just introduce yourselves and talk about your podcast for people who might be new to you?
Sure, yeah. We're a Nintendo 64 podcast, and we go through chronologically through the library. So once a month we cover one or two games from the series, depending. Sometimes we'll put two together, and it's fun. It's just like the two of us. We're a married couple, so it's like kind of we play through all the games together, and it's a lot of fun. And also in the months between those main episodes, we also talk a lot about other video games or like pop culture things from the time period, and we really try to immerse ourselves in the late 90s, I guess early 2000s. Eventually we'll get there. Yeah. Anything else we should add to that?
I think you
I think
pretty much got.
pretty-
We have guests on every month in our main episode. From, a variety. They have a variety of experiences with the Nintendo 64 games.
Oh yeah, that's been
some experts that maybe have some more knowledge than we do.
Yeah, that's been a really good thing. Is like, so we have some genres we aren't like that. We're not experts in at all. You know, like fighting games is a big one, and racing games, we like those, but we're not very good. And we've got some people who come on and kind of school us a little bit. So we're also sort of on like it's about our personal experience and our guests' personal experience, but also it's like educational for us. We're like on the Magic School Bus, I feel like, but going through the N64 library.
Nice. Yeah, I really like that connection you make to other pop culture in the 90s and orienting each game in its time period. It's always kind of funny to hear about, like, well, this was the most popular song at the time, and these were the most popular movies in theaters.
I enjoyed your Star Trek episode.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we just we recorded another one too, and yeah, we also, that's another thing, is we're also just both really big Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
So we've kind of used, since it's our podcast, we're like, we can kind of do whatever we want. We're like, we'll talk about Star Trek.
We got like a mini series alongside the Nintendo 64 stuff.
Yeah, it's a really well-produced show, and people should check it out wherever they listen to podcasts. It's Flashback 64. Give them a follow. Give them a nice review.
We should also say, too, this episode, we discussed, this episode is coming out the day after we had you all on our show to talk about Kirby's Dream Land, which was a lot of fun. That was a favorite episode of mine. And so we're also kind of on like a little Kirby adventure.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad we could be with you for your Kirby adventure.
Thank you.
And I'm also glad you recommended Kirby's Return to Dreamland. I know you said you had that sitting on your shelf and you were thinking of playing that next. And that's a game that I had kind of thought was maybe not as much of like one, like when I was sort of planning out, what should we do next, and talking with Kai and Bridget and Gigi about like what games we wanted to cover. That wasn't one that was like really front of mind for me, because I kind of felt like, well, we talked about the remake a few times. Would we talk about the original Wii game again so soon? But I'm really glad you recommended that, because I really had not played a Wii game in a long time. And I think it really holds up really well. It was still really fun to go back to. And there's so much to talk about. That's still very distinct from what one might talk about with the remake. So thanks for that recommendation. And that's what we're going to talk about today for this episode, the original Kirby's Return to Dreamland.
Yeah, thank you. We've been feeling also a little nostalgic about the Wii, which is kind of funny, like thinking how old that is now. So it was good for that to be like, we got our Wii out, and like you said, we had that on the shelf, and it was a game that's never been on my radar. I don't think you either. No. So it was cool to like, it was totally new experience for the both of us.
Yeah, so I thought to kick it off here, we could each just talk about our first impressions of the game, maybe when we first played it, or just how we feel about it right now. Just go around, kind of round robin that way. Would anyone like to start?
Are we? I feel like maybe we're not qualified to start.
Well, actually, as our guests, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, I don't think this game was ever fully on my radar, and I think we haven't played a lot of Kirby games. So, but somehow, I had this game, and so at first when I was looking at it, I was like, I'm not sure, like some of the Kirby games I looked at, I'm like, I don't know, does this game look interesting or not? There's a lot of them, I think on the Wii, I don't know how many, are there multiple Kirby games?
Well, there's also Kirby's Epic Yarn is on the Wii.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think I always associated it as like a less remarkable looking game because Kirby's Epic Yarn just has like a cool art style. So I didn't go into it thinking like, yeah, whatever, but it was just never fully like on my radar. But I gotta say, I don't know what McKenna thinks, but I honestly I loved this game. It like I almost immediately got super into it, and it had me like I was into it basically until we got to the credits. I was like, I was pretty surprised on how much fun or like how much this game took me in. But what did you think?
Yeah, we played this co-op, and I think we were having so much fun through all the levels. So we were laughing a lot through each level just because of how much fun we were having, and how many unique little things were going on in the levels, whether it was like, oh, we got this super ability, or we'd be like, oh, what's that in the background there? They got all kinds of things going on, and the music was really good. Some of it, a lot of it, I was like, oh, this sounds like something that would be in Smash, which is a feeling I had with like other aspects of the game. I kept thinking of the subspace emissary from Brawl.
Yeah.
And this is my second Kirby game, but it's my first Kirby game with the copy abilities. And
oh yeah.
So it was fun to try them all out and get to decide which one I wanted to use at a certain point. And we've been playing Echoes of Wisdom because that just came out, and it kind of some parts of it reminded me of that, because it was like, okay, we get to like copy something and use an ability that's not our own. Plus there were like riffs going on that we got to go.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. It's been a fun time going through the game.
Yeah, the co-op was crucial with that too. Like we that's the thing we value a lot when we get to a game on our show, is like if we can play it together, it ups the fun factor big time.
Yeah, for sure. When I was going back to it this time, I was just playing it by myself. Like in the past, I had played the co-op, but I did feel like going back and playing it again. I missed having that sort of local multiplayer experience that I felt like is a big part of the game. Still very fun single player too, but I'm glad you were able to really embrace that multiplayer aspect.
I kind of want to play it. I will say, like, I got into the game so much that I know about the remake or whatever on Switch, and I kind of want to get it and like play through it single player and do some of the we didn't do everything, so I kind of want to, like, I don't know if I'd 100% it, but I kind of want to go through and like do some of the really hard stuff in it.
Nice.
Yeah. Bridget, how do you feel about this game?
There's a lot of feelings here for this game. So I have a very long history with the Kirby games. And one of the Kirby games, like retro Kirby games that I played a lot, especially like when I was in college, was Kirby Superstar, which is like still my favorite game. I mean, I love all the new games too, but it's just like such a pivotal game for me as a fan, because it was like the first Kirby game that made me really want to go back and like explore all my options with abilities, and like I did a lot of running of the boss rushes with different abilities, and I had so much fun. It was also the introduction of movesets for the powers, which was very fun, which is, I don't know how much you experimented with that in Return to Dreamland, but the fact that you not only got a power, but it also did like kind of like Smash Brothers movesets basically, which is probably why it reminds you of Smash Brothers, which Sakurai, who directs Smash Brothers, worked on Kirby Superstar. That was like the last traditional game that he worked on. But I had waited years for another game to like bring back these abilities, because I was such a fan of it. And it took so long. There was like a drought for a long time where there was not a Kirby game on a console for like maybe more than 10 years or something. And it was pretty brutal. And then they announced Epic Yarn, which was good. Don't get me wrong, it's a cute game, and yes, it has a very nice art style. But it's having waited for so long for like a game that kind of preceded Superstar. I was like, oh my god, like I hope they don't forget about it and never do it again, because I loved it. And then they announced Return to Dreamland, and I like flipped out because the abilities are like that again. It reminded me of Superstar in a lot of ways, and I was super excited. I was like, this is like the legit Kirby game that I've been waiting for. It's like a legit follow-up. And I enjoyed it a lot. Like, yeah, there are some later entries that sort of finesse it out more, sort of smooth it out, but I feel like it's still so solid. Like, a lot of the puzzling is still fun, the post game is fun, and returning to abilities was so fun. So overall, like, even with some of its like imperfections, I guess, it still just has a high place in my heart, just for like bringing the series back to these like things that like old fans had like missed for so long. And I have just a lot of fond feelings for it.
Yeah, Gigi, how about you?
It's funny because as Bridget was like explaining her views, I was like, yeah, I agree. There's a lot in common, but I will also explain a bit from my experience. So I also played Return to Dreamland when it released back in 2011, but it was around the time I had just got into Kirby. So I first played a game like 2 years before, in 2009. So I got in the series, and I heard about a certain game for the GameCube, like a Kirby game for the GameCube, was in development, and apparently had disappeared, and there was no news. And I remember like going, I wonder if they're going to release it for the Wii now, because there's the Wii and whatever. And I just remember when it was announced, I also like went crazy, like, oh my god, that game from the GameCube now in the Wii, and it looks amazing. Because also when I saw Epic Yarn and later even Mads Attack, which was a spin-off like that, also I was like, okay, that's cool, but I want a traditional Kirby game. Like, I really want one for the Wii. And I saw that, I was just like really happy. I played it, I loved it. It was my first game as a fan, like that released a mainline game. So I was also, it's really like important for me. And I agree also that I think later games kind of improved that formula of sorts. Like this game pretty much like had a formula that like Triple Deluxe and other games after pretty much use it as a base. So I feel maybe other games later did that better. But I think that game's a really good foundation, and itself it's a good game. It's fun. I have played it many times over the years. I have played single player, co-op, like 3 players, 4 players, 2 players, all sorts of combinations with all sorts of people. It has been fun. I like all the different kind of experiences game has, and really, I just really like it. And yeah, it has a special place for me, and I just love it, even if it's not my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of echoing both of you. I think that this is a game that I just really, really like, even if it's not my favorite. And I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing it with faint praise, because I did have a lot of fun going back to it, even more than I expected. But just because I feel like other games took the template that this game establishes, this is one of the first Kirby games that Shinya Kumizaki directed. And I think you really see his style. And for a long time, 2D Kirby games started doing this thing where they would offer a certain familiar template with like a little twist. and so I think we see that with this game a little bit, where it's not taking too many risks. It's just introducing a few little things to the 2D Kirby formula. And other games that came out later would take this same template and I think take that in a little bit more complex or creative directions. But just because other games iterate on this formula a little bit better, that doesn't mean that this is bad. And for those other games to exist, you needed this game that really established what then modern 2D Kirby games would look like. So just because other games came out that maybe, at least to me, surpass it a little bit in some ways, it doesn't mean that this one isn't worth going back to. And I think it is kind of neat how the remake was fresher in my memory, and then I went back to play this one, and I do actually like the art style, I think, in this original better than the remake, where the remake looks so nice, it's so polished, but there's I don't know if it's nostalgia or if I just kind of like that 3D style more, but it feels like getting to play that lost GameCube game. Like it's the closest thing we have to getting to play that in a way that the remake doesn't feel, if that makes sense. I don't know if other people felt kind of like that.
No, I agree. It's got its own vibe. I mean, there's a kind of like comic book-esque look to the new game that just wasn't there in the original. So even though it's sort of a way to spice it up, it does give like a different impression. So I can understand.
I haven't seen anything like any footage or anything of the new game. I thought I was under the impression that it was just like, you know, a nicer looking version, but you're saying it has like a different like art style and stuff.
Yeah, there are these like outlines on the characters, and the environments have been revamped. It's still in the spirit of it, but it's definitely got like a different aesthetic.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. It does look really good. But it might. I think I agree with what Sean said. Like, it feels the older graphics, they feel a bit more. It's just more quaint, and there is a charm. Maybe it is nostalgia a little bit, but I don't know. It fits like especially when you're playing it on the Wii. It makes me, even though I never played this game, like it made me, a bit reminiscent about the Wii era. So that's something I always like about going back to these games even when they've kind of had like the graphical cleanup. You got Wii vibes?
Yeah, definitely.
That was one great experience about it, was just getting to, hear noises come out of our Wiimote and all that type of stuff.
We also played it both on our CRTV and our newer, the HD TV. So
yeah,
got both like aspect ratio.
We tried it out both ways.
The CRTV was a bit, there were some like word readability issues.
The Wii
Not
era,
that there was a ton of dialogue to read, but
the Wii era is a little it's weird because it's sort of like that era between HD TVs and not, and like some games, it's like they just don't, like, you need it to be on a big screen, but it's not HD and it looks kind of weird, and the text is kind of hard to read, and certain games look better on one thing, as opposed to like we play all our N64 games on like an old TV and it looks, just how it's supposed to. But things were a little bit up in the air in this time period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I held on to like my old TV for the longest time during this era, and I played like a bunch of Wii games on this giant tube TV, and I was so stubborn to like move to HD, but all my friends had, and they would complain that the Wii looked so crappy, and I was playing it on an old TV, so I'm like, what are you talking about? It looks great. So I think I was just looking at it differently.
Yeah, I had a friend who I specifically remember, like he would get really mad about HD TVs, and he'd like plug something into it, like probably, a Wii game or something. He's like, see, it doesn't even look better. And like now I really like you realize it's not just because you plug it into that TV and everything looks better, but
Yeah.
we were just so like, we were just mad about the text on all the games we were trying to play on our old TVs. Everything's too small.
That's what they need, is a TV that just automatically optimizes whatever you plugged into it.
Ugh.
Oh, that's $1 million idea.
Yeah.
I did want to say what you were saying about kind of the formulaic sort of aspect of it. That's kind of what I meant by like what I was going in assuming, like it didn't look. I did sort of had this sense of like, oh, maybe this was like, I got vibes of like new Super Mario Brothers, where it doesn't feel like the most ambitious game in the series. Like that's the impression I get, but what overrides that in both cases with both these games is that just the ability to play co-op together just overrides. Like I'm interested to hear like the more specific flaws of this game, from like, especially from a single player perspective, because as long as like we're bouncing around and like even when we like mess each other up, it's like funny, so it's hard to for me to evaluate this as like a flaws versus not, because it was just we pretty much, even when we were like frustrated, we were having fun, like, or even when like certain aspects about co-op don't make as much sense for the game as it would single player, like we were having a blast.
Yeah, the co-op to me I think is great, and like the game that I had played a lot before was Kirby Superstar, which also had co-op, which at that time was like really impressive. Like I feel like co-op is taken for granted nowadays because it's like automatically a lot of games will just have co-op. But like I remember growing up with the NES, and it's like if you wanted to play Mario, like you had to pass that controller over. There was like no Luigi and Mario on the same game, the same screen, and like Mario, Luigi, and the other characters wouldn't even be on the same screen until the Wii with the new Super Mario Brothers games. So like having this kind of co-op worked out in the SNES age was really impressive, I feel. And the way that it's specifically handled with like this tether system is so great to play with like other people co-op, where it's at least you get like to be together on the screen and like not lose each other. It's perfect for new beginners too, if you're playing with like a kid or an adult. Like I played Kirby games with my mom, and she will fall into a pit or get lost, and I like seeing her sort of zipped back to me. So it's like, you're okay, you're fine.
Yeah, it's interesting that it seemed like one of the major hangups that prevented the GameCube Kirby game from coming out, and there are actually 3 different lost Kirby games from that time period.
Wow.
And the remake for this game seems to use the comic book art style that was originally going to be used in one of those lost Kirby games. So that is an interesting callback. And there's actually a lot of evidence throughout Kirby history of them having an idea for one game that doesn't work out, so then they use it for a later one. But it's interesting how the multiplayer was apparently the thing they couldn't quite get right about the GameCube game, or at least that's like one of the things they've said was the reason that it didn't come out. So they pared it back somehow or made it less of a focus. But they definitely seem to have gotten it right with this one. So I don't know what they were trying to do with the GameCube, the one that didn't work out, because clearly this was enough, and this worked in the format that they did it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to add about that, because again, I read and translate a lot of interviews, and I think I have your answer for that, but this is a bit of my own speculation. But the original GameCube game was like, it had the helper system from Superstar, but it was 4 players. So that you have to like create 3 helpers and manage all that. So I think that was probably the main reason why that didn't work out. Because in Return to Dreamland, even though you have co-op, you're either another Kirby, Meta Knight, DDD, or Bandana Waddle Dee. It's not like a helper system where you have to get an ability to create a helper, and then, it's a bit complicated if it's more than one, like it's more than 2 people. And I feel that's also why they did the way they did in like Star Allies, like the helper system is really different. You throw the friend hearts instead of like creating a helper from ability Kirby gets. So personally, I think that's probably where they stuck at. I don't know like exactly. They never explain like what was the problem with the co-op, but I personally think it's that because they also mentioned, I think, in an interview that you know how in Return to Dreamland when you join, your character just appears and that's it. Like and it has they have a name for that. It's like a quick join, quick leave. Like you can enter and join anytime. And that's a system they put also to make it easier to like have anyone join. You know, you're playing the game and then someone comes like, "Hey, I want to join." You can just give them a controller and they enter. That's probably something else they had to keep in mind. I don't know. Anyway, this is partly speculation on my part, but from what I've heard and seen that they talk about, I think that's basically probably somewhere around that or something.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and just to clarify for Gui and McKenna, the helper system in Kirby Superstar lets Kirby create a helper out of all the different abilities. So every ability has its own helper. So there's a lot of different characters in that case that could be your helper. Whereas in this, you really just have the 4 core characters. So I can see how that is a little streamlined.
Yeah, I think that all worked pretty well for us. Like just being, we a couple times were like, oh, whoops, we picked the wrong thing and we had to, get out or whatever. But it was pretty seamless. And I did want to know because I apologize, but I always played as player 1. So McKenna was always getting tethered because I'd be shot out of a cannon or something. So I guess that's something I always wonder with certain games like this that have like Sonic 2 has like a co-op, where you can play as Tails, but sometimes it's a little frustrating. The game moves so fast and you go flying off the screen and you're like, where's Tails?
And he's so slow to return too. You gotta wait until he lands from flying and everything. It's like, what? I was Tails.
It's cool you can do it, especially for the time. It's pretty impressive. But it's not the height of fun, I would say. Being Tails is like not always the best, but McKenna is the tethered person. How was your? There was times where I think you just put the controller down for a moment.
Yeah, I'd be like, yeah, you got this. I'm just gonna.
I'm snowballing away.
Yeah, when you got like the super ability, we would like trade off on that. Like sometimes you would get it, and sometimes I would get it. But if that happened, I'd be like, all right, I'm just gonna enjoy the ride right now, which is kind of fun.
Okay, so it wasn't like annoying.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Were you both playing as Kirby then, or McKenna? Did you play as other characters too?
I mostly played as Kirby, but I did try out the other ones. I think I played as Meta Knight for a bit. I think I played maybe as King DDD for a second.
But you don't get those powers.
But yeah, you don't get to use the copy ability. So I'm like, I gotta be Kirby.
That's fair.
It could be useful. Like there were times where we'd be fighting a boss and like if player 2 dies, you can keep going and player 2 can jump back in. But if you come in as Kirby, you don't really have like you have to, rely on using the stars to fight the boss. So it could be useful to be like, oh, I'll pick Meta Knight or whatever so I can just come in and start attacking. But we were never like super strategic about that. But I could see that being a strategy. But all in all, it's like who doesn't want to have all the copy abilities?
Yeah, I love being Kirby too.
I do love being Kirby, just in general. That's one thing I didn't realize. I just McKenna, you mentioned like all the things we were like laughing and all this stuff, but it's like the game just has a lot of like little touches, little details that make it so silly and fun, and like it just feels like yeah, we're playing through these levels and they do get hard at times, but a lot of times we're just hanging out. like when you go in the water and you get your little floaty,
Mm-hmm.
or just when we were laughing, riding on each other's backs all the time, or when someone gets health and you want to get to the other person so you can give them a little kiss. So we were often just yelling like whatever item, and then going kiss.
Yeah.
Gotta get to each other. So I think it helped us grow even closer, our strengthen our marriage.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So on the topic, I guess, of difficulty, like I personally found this game, I mean, at this time I was already playing like games like Dark Souls and stuff, and so I found it to be on the easier side by the time I was playing this game, but it did pick up by the end, and it's got an extra mode as well, which picks up a little more. But how did you feel about the levels?
My overall thesis on the difficulty in this game is it's both extremely easy and extremely difficult, because it is made like that. That's the thing about what I've noticed with Kirby games is like there's ways to get through it pretty easily, and this game does put up some challenge still, but then they throw in things to test you, and especially a lot of those like the doomer segments felt kind of difficult, especially with two of us were bonking into each other or whatever. So that's what I really loved about it, was we got to the end and we had to kind of to get it done for having credits before we come to talk about it on the show. We had to skip some of the later, harder bonus things that earlier in the game we were kind of like trying to get all the stuff. But that's what I was saying when I was like, oh, I want to replay it and like try out some of that stuff too. I'm sure it's not like the most difficult thing in games, but it felt like it puts up a bit of a fight. What did you think?
Yeah, I think it was pretty it was easy to get into, but like you said, the later, still the optional like doomer rift sections got a little difficult, and then I guess the final boss was a little more difficult than I expected. But it was a lot of fun. I like a lot of Nintendo stuff that's kind of like, it's easy to learn, but it has these extra difficulty levels that you can get to if you want to.
Kirby's like the perfect thing for that. Like just the vibe and overall, it's like, I think we might have mentioned this on our episode, but like one of our friends, his son, who's like a toddler, is like, he's like so hooked into like Kirby, and he knows like I forgot which game it is, but he knows like all the like secrets and details of like this specific level of a game, and I'm like,
I think he was playing a demo on the Switch.
Yeah, he only had that level. He does. I got an update. He does have the game now, and he loves it. But yeah,
nice.
Yeah, it was great, approachable, but like I think it was still engaging. Like even some of the easier bosses or whatever were like fun to fight, and like it didn't feel like cheap or anything, so yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gigi, how do you feel about the difficulty in this game?
Yeah, like in general, I feel Kirby's like they said, it's easy but hard to master. Like if you wanted to go 100% or just do everything in the game, you really have to like, it's hard. But just beating the game or getting the like most stuff, getting through, it's easy. This game in particular, I feel it's also on the easier side, like in general, but also not super easy. And honestly, I just have a good time playing it, and I have played it so many times that I pretty much know all collectibles and stuff by heart, even after not playing for years. Like when I was playing the remake, I just remember everything. Like it was funny. So there's also that for me. So in the sense of, oh, how do I get this collectible? Where is this energy spear? I remember, so I don't know it anymore if it was super hard or not. But yeah, the extra mode, like, it's hard. The remake again, I think, made that harder. But even the original, I remember having some difficulty because you have less health and the bosses are harder and all that. But still, like, manageable. And the true arena and stuff also hard. But yeah, it's Kirby, so the story mode is usually easy, and everything else is probably a challenge in various ways. So yeah.
Yeah, I think this game is not maybe as easy as people think that it is. We have talked a lot about Kirby difficulty on this podcast in other episodes, so people have maybe heard us say things like this before. But I think we've all kind of talked about how we like the way Kirby games gradually escalate, how they start off very accessible because they're meant to be for all different types of players, but how they gradually turn up the heat as you go and until it starts to get more difficult. But I think we've also kind of together felt like maybe they could offer more different difficulty levels earlier on in the game, or ramp up that difficulty a little bit faster, just because it does seem like you have to play quite a bit, I think, before it starts to get more challenging, which I don't mind doing personally because I like Kirby games and I think they're fun even when they're laid back and breezy, or whether they're giving you more conflict. But I wonder if they wouldn't be a little bit more popular if they turned up the difficulty a little bit sooner or offered more different difficulty levels beyond just that extra mode. And then maybe more older players like us would play more Kirby games because they wouldn't just be thought of as much as kids games as they sometimes are. And this is one that I think got labeled as a game for kids a little more than maybe some of the other ones did, specifically because of how it handled difficulty and how it does start off pretty easy, even if the extra mode is quite challenging and a lot of the later challenges really do test you and can be quite difficult. Kirby's also a little slower in this game, I feel. I don't know if the rest of you... I noticed comparing this one to the remake, is Kirby's a little faster in the remake? And he
is faster, yeah.
He does feel just a little slow in this one. And I don't really mind slow Kirby. In Kirby 64, he moves fairly slowly in that game too, compared to some of his other games. But I noticed...
I mind.
Yeah, I know. Bridget likes really fast-paced Kirby stuff. In this game, I felt the slowness a little bit more, which isn't a big problem or anything. It's just something I noticed.
It was, I think, there was like just with another player, that was maybe harder to notice because we were kind of more slow going through it, and also like kind of in each other's way a lot. So we're never like. There were parts where you had to run, like certain challenges, and that was even like a bit trickier to manage with two people. So I could see that though, like if I was playing like single player, I'd probably notice that a lot more.
Yeah, I think I noticed it the most when we were both just flying, just trying to get from like one place to the next. Or it's just like, we're flying. We're getting there. It's taken a little while, but we're getting there.
In my mind, it felt kind of how I like remembered playing Kirby games that I had played, but I'm sure if I had played more, I would definitely have like insanely specific feelings about the speed in every game, because I do that all the time with Zelda games. I'm like, there's certain ones where I'm like, guys, just move way too slow in this one. You can't roll. Like, what's going on?
I'm that for Kirby for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think this game is sluggish or anything like that. I wouldn't want it to come across as like unplayable or something. It just has more of a leisurely pace to it.
Oh yeah. It was not until like the last two worlds maybe where we were really like having much difficulty. There would be random moments, but it was towards the end where like it felt, up until then it did kind of feel like, oh yeah, strolling around.
We're going.
And then they throw like one of those levels where you're like going down like a water thing really fast, and it'd be like that would add some like excitement to it. But yeah, a lot of times we were hanging out, we were vibing.
How did you feel about the motion controls or things that you did with the Wiimote?
I was pretty. What did you think?
I liked it. It wasn't too often that it happened, but you know, it was fun to shake a controller a bit every once in a while. I think we did one of the like bonus level things where you throw in the like ninja stars at the targets. I think that's where I had the most fun with the Wiimote.
Because yeah, like they were like motion mini games basically. Like those were cool.
Mm-hmm.
In game, yeah, like the shaking. It reminded me a lot of the Wario game on Wii. The one, I think, is it called Shake It, where it's like you pick up bags of money and you shake the controller and he shakes the coins out of it. I love that sort of thing. Like like McKenna said, as long as it's not all the time, and it's something kind of natural too. Like there's certain Wii games that are enhanced by Sean, you were saying this before we recorded, so I don't want to steal this idea.
No, go ahead.
It's so true. We're like adding like a little shake or something into it. I think of like when you go off a jump in Mario Kart and you can do a little shake, or just even like the controls of certain Wii games where it's more like less that it's a gimmick and more like it has like this very specific, like subtle gameplay function that it like replaces with that almost makes it almost becomes like second nature. And I almost find those games like on Wii insanely satisfying. So this wasn't quite that. It was more in the gimmicky like shake it type thing, but it happened just enough to like really, I don't know, it was exciting when you got to be like a snowball or shake and go crazy bowling. I loved it.
Yeah. I had actually forgotten about the mini games, but they're great. I had a lot of fun with those. My mom loved the Ninja Star one, and I think the Scope one, where it's sort of like a shooting type of game, is exclusive to the original, because I don't think it came back in the remake.
It is.
Yeah, so
cool.
it's a specific experience from the Wii. So, and it's awesome too. I like it.
Yeah, that was
sweet. Yeah, I like the motion controls in this game. Like, I love Ninja Dojo, the mini game. It's one of my favorites of the series. And one thing I really like, which is really specific about this game, is how you can charge Spark just by shaking the controller, instead of in the other games you have to tap the D-pad repeatedly, and it's sometimes really hard. In this game, you can just shake it and you just charge and shoot. It's really fun. I just love it, and it's only in this game, so that's that.
Yeah. That hurt my finger when I had to tap like crazy on the D-pad.
Same. Yeah.
So it's kind of a nice and real Wii specific solution to it.
Yes, I really like it.
The Scope game that's exclusive to the Wii version, I thought was really fun. But when I first booted up this game again, I remembered that there were those mini games, and I was like, oh, well, let me check out the mini games before I go back and play the game again. And I got really into them and spent more time with them than I expected to. It's just this, the Scope one in particular is this really fun boss rush light gun game that's actually pretty challenging. And it just does feel good to point, like, I like the Joy-Cons, but they are a little smaller, and there's just something a little bit bigger and satisfying about the Wiimote, I think, pointing that at the screen. So that was unexpected extra joy to this game that I had forgotten about.
Oh my god, can I just say that one of my favorite things about the Wii is the pointer controls, and how like that's like the waggle is cool and everything, and some games really use the tilt or whatever, but the pointer controls I feel was like the true strength. Like games that used it, the Flashlight and Silent Hill Shattered Memories, Metroid, the Metroid Prime ports on there that I played, like Resident Evil 4, re-edition.
The definitive edition of that game.
Exactly. The only way I'm playing that game.
I wasn't going to bring it up before, but that was basically like one of the games I'm thinking of where it took the game and it added the pointing into it, but it felt better if it didn't feel tacked on. It felt better to play that game than it did on GameCube or whatever you could get it on, and man, that was so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
That scope minigame in Kirby kind of had a little taste of that too. I was like, it's nice.
It had one of our favorite moments in the game, which is just when the minigame is done. That's another thing, is there's just something about Kirby the guy and how he reacts to the game happening. You finish the minigame and Kirby just turns around, and we had 2 Kirbys, and I can't quite describe it. It's just, there's something funny about Kirby just got done shooting up some mechs and he's like
smiling.
Yeah, that's cool. And then they'll go, yeah. He's just a cool guy. He's like a cool, fun-loving guy.
Yeah, I love all the dancing he does.
Yeah, that's it. We would
It's
like
really great.
kill a giant boss and swallow it, and then so good.
Yeah, there's so much humor in Kirby games, and I think that aspect of the series is underrated. I'm not sure people realize just how funny they are and how intentional it is. And when you play multiplayer, you get this really farcical element to it that is such an intentional thing. It's like they want you to be bouncing off each other and interacting in these like weird ways and stacking on top of each other and maybe even kind of sabotaging each other a little bit. Like, they give you so much room to just play around and watch these characters bumble through things together.
Mm-hmm. It's fun when you're doing it as 2 Kirbys. There's something, the more Kirbys, it reminds me of how in Kirby's Dream Land, how they had that quote of like, why are there 3 Kirbys? And it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just nice. It's like, why not?
I also like at the beginning of the ninja game when they say, get ready to ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah, that game is actually very tense. Like, I don't know how you feel when you play it,
I was like, when's the target gonna come up? When's it gonna come up?
White knuckle, like
sometimes it's just like, it's so fast. Like this one I need to make sure I attach the wristband, be careful with it.
Oh god, yeah.
That could, I feel like I could totally see us doing that.
If you're really nasty, you could just like distract your partner while you're trying to throw your own star. Yeah.
No, we were mostly cooperative. Yeah, some of the challenges we were more in the game, like especially when you had to do the thing where you're running away from the rift thing to get to the doomer fights. We were like at times like shouting, not like angrily. Well, I was cursing out the doomer. and I would, if you got the killing blow, I would praise you for killing this horrible guy. But it did have a lot of moments of like, come on, like just like it was fun, like, because the challenges, they I think they seemed harder than they were, but like they were just hard enough that it was like satisfying to get to the end and beat the guy.
How did you feel about the ultra abilities? Because I believe this is the first game where they kind of introduced some kind of gimmick that would be kind of core to the puzzling or collection of a game. Later games would have like different ones, and like the Forgotten Land has like the mouthful one that they introduced in that one. So this one was kind of the first one, and it didn't introduce the ultra abilities. So I know you took turns on it, but how did you feel about the abilities themselves?
I liked them a lot. I love that, sometimes Kirby just gets to be OP. It's
Yeah.
just like we're just gonna blast everyone on the screen. But it was still, it wasn't like just press a button and you don't have to worry about anything. There was still like a element where in certain instances where you had to time things correctly, it got a little puzzly.
Yeah, you could like, there's like the one I think of with the laser where you have to like guide it around the screen to like light up the stuff. Like they made them mostly unique. Like they kind of had a different way of operating, and it wasn't until like a little bit later, like you had mentioned before, where like they got more difficult. But yeah, they were all pretty engaging.
Yeah, there's one where you're like rolling through and you're kind of like bowling. I think that was my favorite.
So good, yeah. And
I
it
think
was
like, oh sorry, just to mention that I think when you knock down all the pins, you get like a bigger prize from like the little ball that pops
Yes.
at the end.
oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that was always very satisfying too. Like just getting all the little stars and stuff. There's like nice variety too between the levels. Like you weren't doing that like when you got to do it, it felt like a treat, you know.
Yeah, Gigi, what did you think of the super abilities?
So it's hard for me to not compare them with the other like kind of special abilities in other games. I like the super abilities in the sense that they look really cool and they're just really nice to use because they're just so flashy. It's just your Kirby with a giant sword like destroying everything. It's cool. It's not my favorite of all of them, but I like the specific ones like Snowball. You just mentioned that, and a couple ones that are more puzzle like, because sometimes it's just, oh, you have to destroy this, and that, and that's not as fun. But when it's more of a puzzle, I like, and they look really cute. I love Snowball like the most. I think out of the designs, it's just really cute. It's just a giant like snow con thing. I don't know. It's cute. I like the designs of the super abilities. So yeah, that's how I feel. It's like I like it. It's not my favorite thing ever, but I like what they did with it. I think it's fun. Oh, and also I have experience like playing multiplayer and having people stealing each other's abilities, like super abilities. I think it's really funny because you can like inhale the other player and steal their ability.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I would do that with my brothers, and we would like just try to steal each other. It was really fun.
We've definitely inhaled each other, but I don't think we ever intentionally stolen a bit ability.
No, I don't think so.
Except when one would be like bouncing around and you'd accidentally suck in someone's ability, and I would feel bad if I did it. But.
Yeah, they'd be like, "Oh, well, all right, this is fine."
Or sometimes I'd be like, "Just keep it." Like we're in the middle of a boss fight. I'm like, "It's yours, don't worry."
Yeah, all those little intentional ways that the game gives you to interact with each other are part of what makes it work so well. Where you really feel like you're playing together, and that other character is really a variable on the screen with you. You're not just playing side by side on the same screen. You're really interacting along the way, and all these little decisions that you have to make together.
Totally.
Yeah. I think that's what makes this game still so high up there for me. Like other games have like polished up that formula, but they lacked co-op being on the 3DS. And this game having co-op just made it something I revisited again because someone I knew didn't play it and I could play it with them. So it's pretty nice feature.
Yeah, and I feel like the super abilities, I feel pretty similar to Gigi, I think, on this, is that they're maybe not my favorite twist, and I could have seen a lot of potential to take them even further than they did, but what they do have is very fun. They kind of slow the game down a little bit every time you use them. They're like, and I don't know, like it's like I like the cinematic quality of that, but at the same time, maybe if there was more than just kind of destroying everything in your path for a lot of those sections, maybe it wouldn't have seemed. I don't. It does it get a little repetitive, perhaps for me sometimes, maybe, just because there really aren't a lot of different ones, but they're still fun to use. It was always nice to see them. It was never like, oh, I have to do this again. It was they're fun to use. I just think that some of the other Kirby games, their particular twists are a little bit more complex. They're used in deeper ways, and these are still fun too. They're just not. There's just maybe not as much depth to them.
Yeah, I feel the same.
I like that there's so many different kinds of swords. Like, it's at least kind of fun to keep using it because they'll come out with something else and swing it.
Yeah.
We got one like way late in the game that we had never gotten. What was it? Oh, it was a fish.
Yeah.
But
I think we looked at each other and we were like,
it was seriously like the final like section of the game, and we had never seen the fish before.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's fun because a couple like swords are rarer than the others. So a couple you're going to see like a lot of times. Some like the fish are super rare. So
Wow, because that was a top moment. That was a magical moment, and now you telling me that makes me even more like excited about it. Like, I'll probably remember that gaming moment now even longer. Like, wow, that was truly a treasure.
Nice.
I'm looking up to see if like the actual odds are out there.
Ooh.
Oh.
I know in with Kirby we just say like rare, very rare, and stuff like that. So I don't know the exact numbers.
I'd be curious to see what.
Yeah.
What
So
ones
Meta
are
Knight's
rare.
sword is also a rare one. You can get Galaxia his sword. There's the regular sword. There's the cleaver. There's the cutlass. There's the Shinai. There's Galaxia, which is a rare one. That's Meta Knight's sword. And very rare is the tuna. And also very rare is a golden fan with the Dreamhatcher symbol of HAL Laboratory.
Oh, I don't think we got that.
Whoa.
That's cool.
I don't remember that one.
I don't remember either.
I think I've seen like literally once. So yeah.
Whoa, really rare.
Yeah. It's like the stone transformations. Like there's a couple that are really common and a couple are really rare, and you get it and you're like, oh, that's one that I haven't seen before. I love that.
Those were really funny. The stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of stone, too, I know we've talked about the super abilities, but how did you feel about just the abilities in general? McKenna, this is your first Kirby game with abilities. Did you have favorites or ones that were particularly memorable to you?
I like the beam a lot, which we called Jester. We kept calling it
Jester mode.
Yeah, I was like, before we started recording, I was like, which one is that called? We keep calling it Jester, and I was like, okay, it's beam. The stone is definitely fun with all the different formations, but also in the levels where you'd be using it to slide, they'd have angled platforms, and you just keep sliding them down, and we'd have to coordinate it.
Oh, God,
so we'd both be
there's a
sliding
mess.
at the same time. And I think the spark was a lot of fun to use. Just activate it and be a little ball of electricity.
Spark was cool. I liked Whip. The Whip was cool. And you know what one was really good, especially for certain like bosses, was when you could bomb. The bombs were awesome. Because you could I liked that you could kind of just throw them every which way. And then I did like, I forgot who mentioned it, but it did have like the smash sort of type thing where you do certain combinations or whatever. And so I loved that aspect of those, especially the sword mode, because like you could do like the Zelda 2 downward thrust that Link does in Smash, and so that's one of the most satisfying moves in video games for me. So
It is very satisfying.
Yeah. Did you know that if you press start, and I think maybe I don't know what button you hit after that, maybe you have to scroll to the left or right or hit select, but there are like full move sets that you can see for like whatever ability you have in that moment. And there are attacks like you may not have known that you even had. Sometimes that's the only way I find out about certain ability attacks. It's like I went in there and checked.
Yeah. I definitely accidentally like did a move I didn't like. I would try to see what I could do and be like, okay, I think I get it, and then I'd go and I'd accidentally do a different move and be like, oh, cool, okay, that's sweet.
Yeah, especially the ones that might be like hold down and then push up, or some of the commands you might not have thought to do. You can't see full move lists for all of them.
Dang, yeah, I don't think we ever looked at those. We could be like optimizing our game here.
That's how you get like the rainbow attack for water and
rainbow attack.
Sakura petals. Yeah, the Sakura petals with ninja.
Yeah, it's speaking about that one. I love it.
Yeah, it's good.
I think that's the input too on whip. If you do like the sort of twirling upward.
Oh yeah.
Attack. So there could be whip possibilities you haven't even tapped into yet.
Yeah.
So I think some of these, it's like way up your alley. Rainbow mode or whatever, rainbow attack. The petals.
Yeah, the colorful stuff.
That's your realm. Oh, I forgot to mention, is it with the super abilities? Because you mentioned Jester. The beam, is it the beam? What's the one where it's like you shoot this beam and it makes like the most horrific sound?
It's beam.
Beam.
Where I was like, I thought my speakers were broken or something, but it was amazing. Like it was like it's so powerful. It's like breaking the game.
That is just how that sounds.
I love it. I'm for it.
Yeah, I like Ninja a lot in this one. I like Spark a lot because I think shaking the controller to charge up the electricity is very satisfying. I think Water is a fun one. It's really powerful to just go through the level, and it in some cases it makes you almost invincible to just go through the level with the downward spout, just hitting everything below you.
Yeah.
True.
In this game, I really like Leaf. Like, it's one of my favorite abilities in this game. It's just really fun, and you can just like use the guard move and just be invincible. So I've used it a lot in bosses because I like hiding and then just attacking, hiding, and attacking. It's really nice.
That also had a similar feeling, like just because you like spit and like kill a bunch of stuff around you, but the tornado where you just like that was one where Tether was coming into play quite a bit.
Yeah.
I liked the fighter mode had you could do like the Dragon Ball Z type move or like the Hadouken or whatever.
The Hadouken.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yeah,
I like the ice one when you're moving. You do like a little skating. Like a little spin. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Didn't
I think you can skate over the water, right?
Yeah. On water, you surf or whatever.
Yeah,
Kirby is so cool.
Even I think these nice little touches.
I think at some point, Magalore, I think, says to you like something like, "Oh, I knew I could count on you because you're just like a cool little guy" or something. I was like, "Yeah, I feel like a cool little guy." Yeah.
How'd you feel about Magalore?
What did you think about? Yeah.
You know, it was funny. We like didn't look up anything before we played, so we're just like, "Oh, this is the last world. We're almost done."
We were shocked.
We're like, "Wait, what?"
Because we just played. We talked on our show Kirby's Dreamland, and it just had like 4 or 5 levels or something. It didn't have a lot of levels, so I didn't think I wasn't thinking about that this would. I guess if they only released that many levels on the Wii for I'm not sure what it costs, but that would probably be not satisfying. But to me, now I'm playing it as a retro game. that I didn't spend any money on. I don't know how, So I had no expectation. I was just like, oh yeah, it's like we're here at the end of the game. Like Magalore, we didn't, we thought, sure, he's just he crashed and we're putting his ship together. Seems like a fine story. I don't care too much, but then we were shocked.
Yeah. Made us fight some cute little dragons.
I should say we weren't totally shocked because I was like, these dragons look nice. Like, why are we fighting them?
Yeah. We're not totally convinced that they're evil.
And then, like, the moment he showed up, like, even before he picked up the crown or whatever, I was like, oh crap, this guy's evil.
What have we done?
He seemed trustworthy. I don't know.
We were just helping a guy in need, and turns out he's evil.
It's not our fault. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the first time that would happen in this series, but I think for a lot of people who maybe didn't start off with like an earlier game, it's sort of like a rethread of a previous story, but it's very, accessible, I think, since it's like sort of the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked. We were into the story, and then like it gets crazy in the end. All the like the cutscenes and stuff in the end. It was like so extra in a way that I just didn't really expect. I thought it would be just like a cute little story or whatever. Instead, it like all of a sudden, I expected at some point there to be I'd heard there was like, the side-scrolling shooter things in Kirby games, kind of like in Dreamland, but like this whole final boss sequence, and that really felt like, it reminded me of like, the final boss fights in Smash. You mentioned that, like it felt like when you get to the end of those story modes or whatever, and it was just so like over the top in a way. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I expected it to have like a nice finish or whatever, but I was shocked by how crazy it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I think about this game is just that it is the game that introduces Magalore. I think in terms of the legacy, the entire Kirby series, it's like one of the standout things about this game and like what really defines it. Magalore is now a fan favorite character. He's very popular. He's playable in a lot of other games. And the remake adds a whole separate sub-game where you play as Magalore on his redemption story, because Magalore is now back to being Kirby's friend. And the game, this game never explores what goes on. Like Magalore, in Kirby's Dream Collection, which is like a compilation of different games, Magalore says that he's built Kirby this like amusement park kind of as a gesture of goodwill, kind of as an apology. And then in the remake, it's fully fleshed out into this really more, fully realized amusement park called Merry Megaland. And that's where they put all the mini games, and it's this whole extra component to the game. So the remake really runs with the Magalore aspect. In the original box art, Megalore's not there. It's Kirby with his three friends. And in the remake, Magalore is there too, because he's now just such a prominent part of it.
That's so cool. Whoa, yeah.
So if Magalore was interesting to you, there is a lot more Magalore.
No, I'm sold. I'm getting the Switch version for sure.
All right.
Wait, this is maybe way too late to get into this, but can someone give us a primer, like maybe a quick explainer on Bandana Waddle Dee? Like, that's not a character I know.
Maybe I'll let Gigi, who has the icon, handle that.
What's the deal with that?
Yeah, on our recording, I should note that Gigi's symbol is of Bandana Waddle Dee.
So I could make a whole episode about Bandana Dee,
sure.
but just like Bandana Waddle Dee is a character that pretty much didn't exist until like Komazaki came to direct the series. Like, Bandana Dee in theory first appeared like in Megaton Punch in Superstar, but like he was just like one opponent of that, like the first one. He was just like I want to deal with a bandana. That was it.
Yeah, he wasn't named Bandana Waddle Dee.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like in the remake of Superstar Ultra, he appeared in a new mode where he was like the second hand of DDD. He's like he works for DDD, and he had a bit of dialogue, but that was it.
Okay.
And then he returned to Dreamland. He just was playable. It was really random, honestly. Like looking back, I was like, why is a Waddle Dee playable? Like, who is this?
Yeah.
Why does he have a spear? Like,
Okay, I love that.
yeah, and like after that, he started appearing more, like in Triple Deluxe and Robobot. He's a supporting character. He likes throw items at Kirby. He was playable again in Superstar, no, in Star Allies, like as ally, and in Forgotten Land, he's the second player. Like you can only be Bandana D as a second player in Forgotten Land, and he's pretty much like the representative of the Waddle Dees, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much who he is, because
Like
Waddle
the
Dees are
emissary.
yeah, Waddle Dees are really popular in Kirby, and I don't know if you know that is a fun fact, but the only character that appears in Flash in every single Kirby game is a Waddle Dee. Not even Kirby.
What?
Because there is a spin-off, DDD's Dream Dash Deluxe, where Kirby only appears like as a cardboard thing. He's in the game, like not physically, but there are Waddle Dees as enemies.
Okay. That's so
So
cool.
the main characters of Kirby are Waddle Dees, not Kirby. Just kidding.
It seems to be very much in the spirit of Kirby that we've picked up on, is like a lot of that stuff of like they just, you know, they'll just throw a curveball at you, like, hey, now you play as a Waddle Dee. There's not even like, and they don't even need to go, they are like, we don't need to like go out of our way to explain this. It's just he's here. Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think Waddle Dees are also like really popular in Japan because there's so much merchandise of not just Kirby but Waddle Dees, and I think it's that like kawaii mascot kind of appeal of the Waddle Dees.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I get it. They're cute.
I like how he just looks like all the other Waddle Dees too. He just happens to be wearing a bandana.
Yes.
It's like if you had like two friends both named like Matt or something, and one of them just wore a bandana and you called them Bandana Matt or something, right? Like there's not really anything else that distinguishes him other than the spear and the bandana.
Yeah, it's charming, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to remember. I don't remember exactly, but I know Komozaki has mentioned this in an interview before. Like, why was Bandana D like the fourth player? But I'm pretty sure it was pretty much like, we wanted like a Waddle Dee because Waddle Dees. Like, they had obviously Kirby, King Dedede, Meta Knight. They need a fourth player, and they went like, why don't we make just Waddle Dee playable, like this one that we introduced in Superstar Ultra, I guess. And then ever since, he has been fleshed out a bit and being like the second player, and he's just really cute. And again, I'm really biased because he's my favorite Kirby character, but one thing I really like about like Bandana D and in general in Kirby is that he's just like a Waddle Dee. And a Waddle Dee is pretty much like the first enemy in cards in the game. They are really weak. You just beat them like it's easy. But he's pretty much a Waddle Dee that trained to become like something. So I really like that aspect. Like, you can be who you want to be. I think that's really nice. So yeah.
It's very inspirational.
Yes, exactly.
It reminds me of like in like Paper Mario, where you could get there was like the Goombet character. Like now like you team up with a little Goomba. But it's even better than this because there is not really a lot of, as you mentioned, not a lot of like pomp and circumstance to him. Like, even his weapon is like kind of unremarkable. You know, he doesn't have like a big cool hammer or sword. It's just like a little spear.
Yeah, it's like, is it like Goombario and Goombella? Is that who they are?
Is that what it is? I couldn't remember the character's name, but yeah, you 1,000 Year Door. They both had them, right? They both had like a Goomba type character you can have on your party.
Yeah.
I forget which game it was, but is it Star Allies where like in his little bio they're like they needed like a representative to come forward, and
Yes.
Bandana Waddle Dee was like, "Oh, not me," but he was secretly practicing his spear moves or something. Where
Yeah,
he
yes,
really
I love
wants
that.
to, and he was maybe not going to do it, but
Well,
Yeah.
he's shot up to the top now. If I was to rank, before we didn't even really play as him, but now I'm thinking he'd probably be up higher tier than all the other ones.
yeah, he gets more differentiated too from just the regular spear ability.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe in the original, he's just like Waddle Dee. Right. It's not like Bandana Waddle Dee, it's just Waddle Dee.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
like in Kirby Superstar, there's like Parasol Waddle Dee
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
too that doesn't have
Yeah.
the bandana. So that's apparently someone
Yeah.
else.
I think that's I think Parasol Waddle Dee is in Kirby Battle Royale, maybe. Because I think the Waddle Dee in that just attacks with Parasol.
Yeah, in Battle Royale, they have Bandana Dee in the game, but he's not playable. Instead, a generic Waddle Dee is playable. Still to today, I don't know why, but yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Waddle Dee. I mean, I always thought the little Waddle Dee with the bandana in the Megaton Punch was cute, and then he had like a small role in Ultra, which was still
Mhm.
nice. It was funny, but I think having him be like, I think they kind of needed a representative too for second player that was maybe consistent, and
Yeah.
he was just he's a good choice for that, I think.
Mhm. Now, I know we have been recording for quite a while now. Do people want to move into their final concluding statements or last thoughts about the game? Anything else you want to cover that we didn't say so far?
Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I just I really love all the little details in the game. There's so much to do. It feels like there's many different ways to play the game with the different abilities and the other characters. I always loved, there all the levels had these like little unbloomed flowers, and you just walk into them and they bloom and you get a star. And I had to go make those flowers bloom every time because that's a feature I love in games. In Breath of the Wild, they have like the Korok puzzles where you run into the flowers and they'll like change different color. And yeah, I love cute little puzzles like that, or you just running into them.
I like the food would pop out too, like hot dogs or something would come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, an underappreciated aspect of this game is just like there's just like hot dogs, and they're not even like super like stylized or anything.
Yeah, and
Very cool.
I love finding out what the level names were with their commitment to the alliteration. Even if it was Onion Ocean, which I was like, that sounds so unappealing.
What are you talking
I don't know
about?
if I
It's
want to
nice
take a dip in Onion Ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned like at the beginning the like backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was cool. Like it reminded me of in Dreamland, we were talking about how sometimes there would just be some weird thing in the background of the game, and they were like, yeah, it just looks cool. It doesn't have to totally make sense. And this had that, but like wild. You just see like crazy stuff floating in the sky and just all kinds of like cool weird stuff in the background that makes you like think about like what is this world. It's like a very bizarre place, but like it's it's just way off there in the background, and so you don't even really think about it. So that was cool. And I guess just for me, like I could totally see like it's got me excited because I really enjoyed the game. And I could kind of tell that like, maybe this isn't like the height of Kirby. And so hearing all of you say like, this game does this better, like has me pretty excited to try other games in the series because It kind of reminds me of like maybe McKenna and I are both into Zelda, like we mentioned, and even some of my least favorite games are games I really love. And so I can totally see like this. I could see this being like maybe one of my least favorite Zeldas, where it just still has like enough of what makes the series cool that I think I could jump off into some of the other games and like really get into them. But I was really into this one. I'm probably going to pick up the Switch version.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. Gigi or Bridget, any other final thoughts?
I think it's a great game. I think it's solid. I think it's a return to the series that, like, aspects of the series that I missed, and I appreciated it. So it's memorable for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. Like, it was just a really great game to release at the time it released, and then afterwards it was just like a bright time for Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this game until today, even if it's not my favorite. I really have many memories with it, and it's just really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think thinking about it in terms of the time it came out, it had just been so long since there was a Kirby game on a console, and maybe it plays it a little safe in some ways, but maybe that makes sense at the same time, since it was a return
At that
to
time,
form.
yeah.
And the multiplayer does add so much to it, and I think it's just aged so well. I think if people have played the remake but they haven't played the Wii version, it's worth it to go back and play the Wii version too. It has a different vibe to it. It's fun to play with the Wiimote. You get the different mini games, right? One of them does carry over, but it feels different when you play the ninja game on the Wii, and you get the scope shot game. And as we close, I want to just point out some trivia that I think is interesting about the game. Going back to Wii Kirby here, is that the scope shot game seems to be the reason this game has an E10 rating due to shooting and realistic explosions.
Wow.
Where it really does not seem any more violent or anything than anything else that happens, but I guess it's a little shootier than Kirby normally is. So it's the first Kirby game to have an E10 rating.
Wow.
And I do think it's interesting to look at the things that were left on the cutting room floor of this game, is that there are signs that they were going to have a super ability for Cutter and Spark as well that they didn't end up ultimately implementing. But you can see assets for what the super Cutter might have looked like, and there's some other stuff too that people can check out on Wit Kirby if they want to really look at certain enemies that didn't make it into the final game and things like that. But as a way to salvage some of the ideas in the GameCube game that never was, I remember watching that trailer for the GameCube Kirby game that was coming and being really excited for it. And it was disappointing that it never came out. It was nice to see a lot of those ideas realized in this game, and playing it on the Wii really gives you that sense of playing the GameCube game that never was.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Gui and McKenna, for joining us. Again, they're from Flashback 64, which now that you're at the end of this podcast, you should go in your podcast player and look up Flashback 64, and you should follow them and leave them a good review and support their Patreon and all the things that people do to support good podcasts. So I really hope you'll check them out. And again, this has been Kirby Conversations from me, Sean Douglas, Bridget, Gigi, and also Kai, Captain Dangerous Parker, our fourth person who couldn't join us for this one, but is also a recurring person on this show. If you would like to get in touch with our show, you can email us at mail@kirbyconversations.com. And I would also like to give a shout out to Corvy, who won our giveaway recently to win a $50 Nintendo points card. And they said they would use it to get Pokemon Violet. So congratulations to you, Corvy. I don't know them personally or anything, but I really appreciate them entering our giveaway. And we will do another giveaway again soon. So I hope you enjoy that Pokemon Violet.
Nice.
And people can find our podcast on Instagram, on Bluesky. Bluesky is really the main one we use along with Instagram. And wherever you listen to podcasts, please follow us in your podcast player. And Flashback 64, where should they find you?
Yeah, our Bluesky is probably where we're most popping off at. We also have a Discord that I think you can find. We don't have like a specific link to that. Oh, you know what? We have a website. My brother helped us make a website, and we haven't gotten like an official domain name for it yet. We made it on the NeoCities website, which is like a GeoCities type situation. So we're I think it's a flashback64.neocities.org. But we're gonna get something. I don't want to say the domain yet because I haven't decided. I don't want someone to take it, but it's cool. It's got all our links on there. And you go look at it if you want to see like an old HTML looking website, but it's very, my brother did a great job. It's very classy. I like it a lot, but we've got our links to the show, our Bluesky and Discord, and then all our other stuff, our Patreon, merch, and all the links are on there. It's very cool. So go check that out.
Man.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all. This has been Kirby Conversations, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Also, I can accept strangling a cute critter with a whip, but I draw the line at semi-realistic explosions.
Yeah.
I'm glad they stuck to their guns on that one. They didn't censor it,
Yeah. I guess no pun intended, right?
Yeah. Stay true to their art.
Yeah.
Yeah.